Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. So I just want to give my sort of final thoughts really on an absolute epic weekend of boxing. Now that dust has settled, I gave a post-fight review, but this is more kind of where do both fighters go now and just analysing it kind of a few days later. Make no mistake about it, it was an all-out war. Both showed tremendous heart, both showed tremendous bravery, both showed tremendous will to win. That cannot be stressed enough. It was an absolute classic battle, but it wasn't a classic boxing encounter. What I mean by that is it was a real war of nutrition for the first 6 rounds. Ultimately a big beat down in the last 5 rounds with Wilder showing tremendous heart, but the skill, the boxing skill, I tend to agree wasn't of a Pernell Whitaker or a Floyd Mayweather. Let's be honest about that. And ironically, Fury could easily have turned it into that. I think my thoughts are it's a really strange one. It was a fantastic performance from Fury, but in some ways it was a poor performance. And let me, before the haters get on board here, is what I mean by that is he kind of neglected all of his fantastic old traits. The head movement, the slippery movement, with his feet, the unpredictability, the jab. And I think at times he got greedy on his own power. I mean, Sugar Hall has done amazing things for Fury. He's completely transformed him into a slick counter boxer, into an aggressive, come forward knockout artist. It's incredible. He's got to believe in his size and weight and punch power. But I think on Saturday it came at a bit of a cost because I didn't see much jabbing until round 5, until he got floored, and then credit to Fury, that's one of his big strengths. He can adapt, he can overcome, and that started to come into play more, hence more success. But I didn't see the slippery movement, I didn't see him on the tips of his toes. I saw him just come forward quite flat-footed in straight lines, and don't get me wrong, it was an effective tactic, but at the same time a risky one, wasn't it? Because he got floored twice and he got caught several times with big booming right hands. But, thankfully for him, Wilder was fatiguing badly, so he lost a lot of the sting and power from round 6 onwards with that right hand. But, he has to be careful because in many ways the second fight was his masterclass because he combined his Ben Davison, Peter Fury style with the Sugar Hall style. He still had jab, he still had slippery movement, and then he come in aggressively when he set Wilder up. On Saturday night, he just kind of went straight for the jugular without too much of a setup, and like I say, he got burnt at times because of that. So, and also, the timing was slightly off because he's had 2 years out of the ring. He's had COVID, obviously. He's had the issues with his baby daughter. Thankfully, they're all resolved now. But I tend to agree with John Fury, his father. It was probably Tyson at like 70% on Saturday night. There was not 100% Fury. I know for a fact he didn't have 100% training camp. Whereas Wilder had a fantastic training camp. He was totally focused and you could see the improvement. However, similar thing, as soon as he got hit, as many predicted, he reverted back to type, didn't he? He lost his jab, which was working so well in the first 2 rounds. He stopped going to the body. He started to just panic and try and throw to the head with that right hand. And Fury started to... Even Fury, who not at his sharpest, could see right through that. So it wasn't a great boxing contest. There wasn't a lot of skill, but my God, it was an absolute enthralling battle of wills. and heart and skill. And you have to give both fighters credit. I can see why they fought like that. I'd like to have seen more head movement and a little bit more defence from Fury. And I would have liked to have seen a lot more variety from Wilder and not panic so much when he got hit. But at the same time, it's easier said than done. Again, when you've had 2 years out like Wilder's had, when you're getting hit by a 20-stone man, so I get it. But it was a real kind of bizarre fight in many ways. The skill went out the window, as Mike Tyson would say, but heart and will certainly didn't. But where do they go from here? Well, listen, I would have pulled Wilder out after round 9, personally. I think he landed, one decent uppercut in round 10, right at the end of the bell, but I mean, from round 6, the fight was almost over. You're watching him fall thinking, can he catch him? Can he pull it out the bag one more time with the right hand? But, as soon as you start to see Fury take a few of them right hands flush and walk him down, the fight was over. And Wilder just took a sustained beating for the last 5 rounds. And you wonder, a beating like that, can he come back? With his punch resistance, surely he's got to be lower next time he fights. And if he gets caught, I can't see him having the resistance he had in that fight. It just took so much out of him. I mean, that was a nasty knockout, and that's what Mark Breland, quite rightly, saved him from in the second fight. But as for Fury, he took some punches, but nowhere near the volume of Wilder. So I think Fury, especially so much younger as well, will be okay. I think he'll bounce back, he'll have confidence, but I would like to see him use a jab more and his head movement more. But I do think he'll be better with a better camp next time. He won't certainly be out the ring for 2 years like he was this time. Brilliant fight. But for Wilder, I'd like him to carry on. I'd like him to go out in style. I'd like him to carry out. He deserves that for the heart he showed. I think he maybe should take a Robert Helenius or even a Charles Martin next. Just a tier 2 fighter down, just to build his confidence, get a knockout, and then go again. Go again at Joshua, a big money fight. Go again at Dillian White, a big money fight, even if it's not for a world title. Or go, the WBO route. WBA regular route with Manuel Charr, that would be an option, or in many ways pray that Usyk ultimately beats Fury and then target Usyk. But I think Wilder should certainly stick around for a year or two. I think but he needs a long rest. I don't touch a ring for 6 months, recover, and then go back down a tier, build your confidence up. I think Malik Scott's done fantastic things on short notice. I think he can still improve Wilder. Obviously, he's not going to turn him into Pernell Whitaker, but I think small adjustments, keep using that jab, that body punch, set the right hand up, back the bigger man up if he's fighting Joshua, or even White, who would be given weight to, because obviously the blueprint now is there. People will be trying to back Wilder up, so he needs to learn how to back them up with his jab. And counter them as they're coming in. So he needs to learn to fight more off the back foot, and also he needs to learn how to avoid the clinch, because people are going to try and do that now. They're going to try and wrestle him and grab him, hold him. So that's something he needs to work on as well. But I'd like him to carry on. I don't think it's over for him at all. But obviously, he just cannot beat Fury, and he needs to just let that one lie now. As for Fury, obviously White beckons as long as he gets through Otto Wallen, but I'd like him to head straight to Usyk. I think his dad's right. Get that unification, but of course he's ideally probably going to have to wait a year for that. That's the only thing. So maybe, if he can somehow have a tune-up fight, a rank outsider, maybe a top tenner in the WBA. Even Alanius again would be a good warm-up fight for him. He's coming off a good win on Saturday night against Karnacki. One of these, budding Americans maybe as well, just to get his eye in and then go for Usyk. That's what I'd like to see for Wilder, but it might be that he's ordered to fight White and he has to go after White. And, you know, that for me, that has to happen in the UK. That has to happen in Manchester. Homecoming, if they're going to happen. And ultimately, I think obviously White would put on a good show and he'd be hungry and get his deserved world title fight. Can't deny him that. But I think obviously Fury would have too much for him. And I think he stops. I think he stops White as well, like he did Wilder. But again, you know, that's a big money fight. But I'd like to see Fury certainly have 6 months off as well. You know, have some rest. Don't rush him back in. The last thing you want to do after a fight like that. Have some family time. They've stated he's hardly seen his family in 6 months. So I wouldn't want to see Fury or Wilder back in the ring until at least April time. But, you know, the world's Fury's oyster, isn't it now? He's the king of the division. He ultimately gets to call shots. And I think he you know, but obviously the WBC is the only stumbling block, putting pressure on him. But, you know, he can do what he wants, really. In many ways, he's bigger than the belt now. So maybe he just bypasses White, which may well happen. But there's also a needle between them two and a big UK fight, which he's posted about today in Manchester. He might be tempted there. So lots of options for Fury, lots of options for Wilder. I think he's come out of this fight far better than he did in the second fight. He's come up with a lot of praise, a lot of credit, and it's not over for him, but he does need to recover. He does need to keep working on his improvements, his defence, his jab. But he's still got that right hand, hasn't he? He's still got that power. And anyone else, I think, apart from Fury, he's knocked out in the heavyweight division in that 4th round. So, you know, he's got a lot to be proud of, and it's not over for both of them. But like I say, it wasn't a boxing classic. I want to see Fury still fight aggressively, but not abandon his head movement or jab like he did in this fight. And for Wilder, again, keep working on his improvements. It was a classic war. It was will and skill, but the boxing went out the window. That's one thing they both need to work on moving forward. But they both have still, I think, got 2 good years, 3 good years left in them. And I can't wait to see their next moves.